Welcome back to Vanished and Unsolved. If you're new here, this channel is dedicated to telling the stories of the missing, the murdered, and the cases that left the world with more questions than answers. Every story we cover is real. Every name we say belonged to a real person. Today's case takes us to Barcelona, Spain, one of Europe's most vibrant cities. But behind the warm Mediterranean light and the beautiful architecture, a woman lost her life in one of the most calculated, cold-blooded crimes in modern Spanish history. This is the story of María Páez Capitán, a 35-year-old fashion designer who trusted the wrong person. And it is the story of a crime the media would come to call the near-perfect crime. Before we get into the crime itself, it's important that we take a moment to understand who Ana Páez was, because she was far more than a victim. Ana María Páez Capitán was born and raised in Spain. By her mid-30s, she had built a life she could be proud of. She was a talented fashion designer, working at a company called Mataro, and she had a passion for creativity that those around her deeply admired. By all accounts, Ana was warm, trusting, and generous. She had a loving family, including her brother, Tony Páez, who would later become one of the most vocal advocates for justice in her case. She also had a long-term partner, Carlos Carbejo, with whom she had shared her life for 7 years. Ana had what many would describe as a full life. And at the center of her professional world was a woman she considered a close friend and mentor, her former employer, María Ángeles Molina Fernandez. The two had known each other for roughly a decade, having first crossed paths when they worked at the same company. Over the years, their relationship had grown beyond the professional. Ana trusted her. She considered her a confidant. She had no idea that trust would cost her everything. The morning of February 21st, 2008, began like any other morning for the cleaning staff of a short-term rental apartment at 36 Camperdon Street in the Gracia neighborhood of Barcelona. But what the cleaning lady found inside that apartment would not be ordinary at all. Ana María Páez Capitán was found unresponsive on the floor of the rented unit. She was unclothed. A plastic bag had been wrapped around her head and sealed with duct tape. She was 35 years old. The authorities were called immediately, and when they arrived and assessed the scene, their initial assessment pointed toward one theory: a sexual crime, possibly a violent encounter gone wrong. The reasoning? The presence of biological evidence, specifically semen, found on and near the body. But the autopsy would complicate that theory almost immediately. The medical examiner found no physical evidence of sexual assault, no signs of a struggle consistent with sexual violence. What the autopsy did confirm was the cause of death: suffocation. Ana had died on February 19, 2008, 2 days before her body was discovered. For her family, the timeline of those 2 days was devastating. Her partner, Carlos, had already reported her missing when she failed to return home or answer her phone. He had contacted her family and gone to police, fearing the worst, which had already happened but unknown to him. Detectives now had a murder scene that told two contradictory stories. The physical evidence appeared to suggest a sexual crime, but the forensic findings said otherwise. As they began interviewing Ana's family and friends, one name kept surfacing: María Ángeles Molina, known to almost everyone in her life simply as Angi. When investigators made contact with Angi, what followed was, by all accounts, one of the most bizarre interviews in the history of the case. Angi gave police a series of conflicting alibis. At one point, she claimed she had been at El Corte Inglés, a popular Spanish department store, purchasing a watch at the time of the murder. In a later version of events, she said she had stopped to buy yogurt. The accounts shifted and contradicted each other in ways that investigators found deeply troubling. At one point during her testimony, Angi made a statement that stunned the courtroom and would later become one of the most memorable quotes from the entire case. When pressed on her whereabouts, she reportedly told investigators and the court, "Without yogurts or condensed milk, I am nothing." The remark landed with an unsettling coldness. It confused the victim's family. It confused the magistrates. And it became a chilling symbol of the kind of person investigators were now dealing with. But Angi's strange statements were not the only thing drawing scrutiny toward her. Something else had emerged, something far more sinister. As the investigation deepened, detectives began to uncover a pattern of behavior that went far beyond what anyone had imagined. For years, Possibly as many as 2 years before the murder, María Ángeles Molina had been systematically stealing Ana Páez's identity. Using forged documents, wigs, and carefully practiced impersonations, Angi had walked into banks and financial institutions across Barcelona presenting herself as Ana. She had opened accounts, applied for loans, and, crucially, taken out multiple life insurance policies in Ana's name. The total value of the financial products she had obtained in Ana's name reportedly exceeded €1 million. Testimony from bank employees and insurance agents confirmed this. Multiple witnesses described a woman matching Angi's description entering their offices, wearing disguises, and signing documents as Ana María Páez Capitán. CCTV footage from at least one bank showed a woman entering and withdrawing money from accounts belonging to Ana, footage that investigators were able to link back to Angi. Ana had no knowledge of any of this. None. And as investigators assembled this picture, the motive for murder became clear. Angi had built an elaborate financial fraud using Ana's identity. But the fraud could not survive if Ana was alive and eventually discovered it. The insurance policies, specifically, required Ana's death to pay out. Ana Páez had not simply been killed by a friend. She had been killed to keep a secret and to collect. What made this case particularly disturbing, and what earned it the label the near-perfect crime, was the level of premeditation involved. On the day of the murder, Angi had constructed an alibi with unusual deliberateness. She traveled to Zaragoza, a city roughly 3 hours from Barcelona, to collect the ashes of a deceased parent who had died approximately a year earlier. The trip was documented and timestamped. She then returned to Barcelona by evening and met Ana at the rented apartment on Camperdon Street. According to the prosecution's reconstruction of events, once inside the apartment, Angi drugged Ana with an unidentified chemical substance, rendering her incapacitated. She then placed a plastic bag over Ana's head and sealed it with duct tape. Ana Páez died of suffocation, but Angi was not done. To redirect the investigation, she needed the scene to tell a different story, and so she staged one. Prior to the murder, Angi had visited a male brothel in Barcelona. At trial, a man identified only as Juan Manuel D. testified that a woman had come to the establishment and made an unusual request. She told him she didn't want sex. She said she had made a bet with friends and needed semen samples. He and another man complied. Angi planted those samples at the crime scene. The staging was designed to make the scene look like a sexual encounter that had turned violent, obscuring any connection to Angi herself. 2 unknown men's DNA at the scene. No immediate link to her. It was, by any measure, a calculated plan. But it didn't work. Investigators dismantled the staged crime scene relatively quickly. The forensic inconsistencies were too significant to ignore. There were no signs of a struggle. The positioning of the body and the method of death didn't align with the narrative the scene was trying to suggest. And Angi's alibis kept falling apart. Her boyfriend at the time also unwittingly contributed to her downfall. He handed investigators documents he had found in their shared bathroom, documents belonging to Ana Páez, including her passport. These were items Ana's family had reported missing. The financial paper trail was extensive. When detectives subpoenaed records from banks and insurance companies, they found a mountain of forged documentation, all of it bearing Ana's name, most of it traceable back to Angi through handwriting analysis, fingerprints, CCTV footage, and witness identification. Search records found at Angi's home further corroborated the prosecution's case. María Ángeles Molina was arrested and charged with the murder of Ana María Páez Capitán, as well as the falsification of documents connected to her fraud scheme. At trial, a proceeding the press dubbed the perfect crime case, Angi took the stand and maintained her innocence throughout. She offered contradictory accounts. She minimized. She deflected. The court was not persuaded. On March 19, 2012, 4 years after Ana's murder, the Barcelona High Court handed down its verdict. María Ángeles Molina Fernández was found guilty of homicide and the falsification of documents. She was sentenced to a total of 22 years in prison, 18 years for the murder of Ana Páez, and an additional 4 years for the document fraud. The Spanish Supreme Court later reviewed the sentence and reduced it to 18 years. For Ana's family, for her brother Tony, for her partner Carlos, for everyone who loved her, the verdict brought some measure of justice. But as anyone who has lost someone to violent crime knows, a conviction does not fill the space left behind. Anna was 35 years old. She was a designer. She was a sister. She was a partner. She had a life ahead of her. And she was killed by someone she trusted. Anna Páez's murder did not exist in isolation. As investigators built their case, it led them to reopen an earlier chapter of Angi's life, one that had never fully been resolved. In 1996, Angi's husband, Juan Antonio Alvarez Litben, had died suddenly and under unexplained circumstances. He was 45 years old, a businessman. His death at the time had been noted, but not investigated as a homicide. With Angi now at the center of a premeditated murder case, authorities took a second look. The circumstances of Juan Antonio's death raised serious questions, particularly given that Angi had inherited his assets following his passing. However, without material forensic evidence, and with years having passed, no charges were ever brought in connection with his death. The case remains officially unresolved. It is a shadow that has never been fully explained. As of the time of this recording, María Ángeles Molina is serving her sentence at the Mas de Enrique prison in Tarragona, northeastern Spain. Under Spain's prison regime, she had been classified in a category that allowed for supervised temporary release. A 2027 parole review had been on the horizon. But in March 2025, during one of those supervised releases, Angi was rearrested. Spanish authorities alleged that, while on temporary leave, she had been involved in planning another murder, reportedly attempting to arrange a contract killing from inside prison. Her temporary release status was revoked, and she was returned to full custody. Her 2027 parole review has been suspended pending the new investigation. No formal charges in this new case had been confirmed at the time of this recording, but the investigation is ongoing. It appears that even behind bars, the story of María Ángeles Molina is not yet finished. The Anna Páez case is often remembered for its complexity, the fake identities, the insurance fraud, the staged crime scene, the contradictions. It is a case that keeps unfolding the more you look at it. But at its center is something very simple and very human, a woman who trusted a friend. Anna Páez did nothing wrong. She showed kindness, loyalty, and trust to someone who systematically weaponized all three of those things against her. Her brother Tony has spoken publicly about his sister over the years, about the person she was, not just the victim she became. And that distinction matters. In true crime, it is easy to get lost in the mechanics of a case, the clues, the timeline, the courtroom drama. But behind every case is a person who deserved more. Anna deserved more. That's the story of Ana María Páez Capitán, a case that shocked Spain, tested the limits of forensic investigation, and exposed just how far one person was willing to go to protect a lie. If this story affected you, if you found yourself thinking about trust, about the people we let into our lives, I think that's the right response. These aren't just crime stories. They're reminders. If you're new to the channel, I'd love for you to subscribe. Every week, we tell the stories that deserve to be told, the cases that lingered, the questions that remained, the people who were never truly forgotten. If you have a case you'd like us to cover, drop it in the comments. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and never stop asking questions. This has been Vanished and Unsolved.